Hello! I hope you enjoyed our short introduction video. I'm now going to proceed with a more complete product demonstration of the Pulse PI application. And this is an application that was developed as a senior design project for University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So at its core, Pulse PI it's a heart rate monitoring application that's used to track heart rate trends over time. And we chose to develop this application because it not only exposed us to a lot of different technologies, but also it has some real-world motivations in that it can be used to improve cardiovascular health. So right now we are looking at the landing page for the user interface portion of Pulse PI. And our user interface portion consists of a desktop application. So to build this desktop application, we use the Electron framework, and the Electron framework uses the Node.js runtime environment to run JavaScript code. For the rest of the front end, we use vanilla JavaScript and jQuery to handle DOM manipulation, and also we use Bootstrap for the actual design of the user interface. Our backend consists of a web API, and this API is deployed using an Azure App Service. We coded our API in C#, and we used the ASP.NET Web API framework. Our backend communicates with a SQL Server database, which is also deployed on the cloud using Azure. And we used Entity Framework as our object relational mapping. A user is able to do several things in our application. They can create an account, they can log into that account, they can update their profile settings, and then they can record exercise and resting sessions, and then they can view their exercise and resting history, and then they can also view some different analyses of the heart rate data that is collected. So I'm going to go through each one of these kind of components of our application and demonstrate how a user would do the things that our application entails. So I'm going to start by creating an account because we don't have one yet. So to do that, I need to go to this kind of side nav bar over here and click on Login. So since we don't have an account yet, we need to click on Create Account here. And then we need to enter all of these necessary values. And our passwords are case sensitive, so we need to be sure to use the same case when we log back in. So once I'm ready to create my account, click on Register Account here, and all of that information I entered is sent to the backend, and if the account does not already exist, then the backend will create a new account in the database. So we can see here our account was successfully created. Our username is doe1234. So then we can get out of here and we can log in with our newly created credentials. So once I push login now, that username and password gets sent to the backend, and the backend makes sure that the credentials are valid and correct, and then if they are, we are able to log into our front end here. So we can see we just logged in, we're Jane Doe now, and we can see a more complete navigation bar on the left-hand side here. So we can see our dashboard page, FAQ, exercise history, profile, and analysis. So I'm going to start by looking at our profile page here. And users have the option to do several things on this page. They can change their photo and update their profile to have a specific picture. They can change their email address first name, middle name, last name, and also they have the option here to enter their biometric data. So their weight, their height, their birthday, and their sex. So what this does is it helps in the analysis of their heart rate data, and also it helps users to track their progress. For instance, if I weighed a certain amount today and then the next time I enter my biometric data I weigh less, then I know that I'm making some progress with my exercise. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe change my middle name here and save that. So we can see we got our note that our settings were saved, and then I'm going to enter my biometrics here. So then once I click save here, a new record is going to be created for me in the database with these values. So that is what a user can do on our profile page. So next I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how a user would record an exercise. So we start on the exercise page, but before we can start recording our heart rates, we need to connect our device. So as you can see on the bottom of the screen there's a demonstration. We used an Arduino Uno Wi-Fi, and it's connected to a pulse sensor. And this pulse sensor just gets wrapped around a finger. And both these pieces of hardware were developed by world-famous electronics, and we were able to use the Arduino IDE to integrate this hardware with our application. So once we are ready with our device, we want to actually connect it to our application. So to connect our device, we go up here to these little bars, click on it, and we have two options to connect our device. We can either enter the IP address of the Wi-Fi, of the Arduino Uno Wi-Fi, or we can scan for it. So I'm going to scan for my device. And it looks like it found it. So we've got some green bars here that indicates a connection. So now we can see that. And then after I'm connected, I want to be able to start an exercise. So down on the right there, I am ready to start recording my heart rate. So I've got my pulse sensor on my finger, and I'm running. So I've selected running up here. There are other exercises that you can choose: walking, cycling, swimming, lifting, yoga, or sleeping. So once I want to record, I push the start button here, and then any heart rates that the pulse sensor reads get sent to our application, and they get displayed here. So we can see as heart rates come in, the current BPM changes, the max BPM changes, and the min BPM changes. So the current BPM changes with every heart rate that's sent. The max BPM will change only if the most recently received heart rate is greater than the greatest one recorded so far, and the same thing with the min BPM. It will get replaced if the most recent recorded heart rate is lower than the lowest one recorded so far. We also have a workout duration on the screen. It's right here. It consists of a timer that just lets you know how far along you are in your workout. So once we're done with our workout, we can push the stop button. We can choose to save our workout to the database if we wish. So I can push the save button, and the details from this workout will be sent to the backend and saved to the database. So then, click on the History tab in the left-hand sidebar over here. And I haven't loaded any history yet, so there's nothing to display. So I can either choose to see all my workout history, I can choose to see only my exercise workout history, or only my resting workout history. So I'm just going to choose all for now and load that. And here we see the one that we just recorded. We just created this user, so there are not a lot of records obviously here, but so we see the type of exercise that was done, the start time, the end time, the low BPM recorded, the high BPM recorded, and the average BPM for the workout. So I can also choose to see the exercise. It'll show the same thing because there are no other exercises, and then I can see resting history too, which is nothing because we didn't record any resting yet. So I'm actually going to, before I talk about the analysis page, I'm actually going to switch my user so I can log out here, and then I'm going to log in as a user who has some more workout history. So I can click login here. So we see the same nav bar here. I'm going to click on the history again just to demonstrate that this user has several past exercises recorded. So I can see just the exercise, I can see just the resting. So now, if I want to see analysis, so the first thing that happens on the analysis page is this top module here gets populated with all these fields. So what gets displayed here is the user's target heart rate, the user's maximum heart rate, and the user's heart rate reserve. And there are descriptions, if you hover on these question marks, that give you explanations about what these fields mean. So the target heart rate, that's the heart rate you want to achieve for vigorous exercise, and it's about 70 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. Your maximum heart rate is based on your age, and then the heart rate reserve is the difference between your max heart rate and your resting heart rate. So we want this number to be higher. So a resource from the Mayo Clinic was used to determine the equations to populate these fields, and also the zones chart over here. So this gives heart rates and the corresponding percentage of the maximum heart rate. For example, 50% of this user's maximum heart rate is 127. So a user could use this to guide their exercise patterns. 50 to 70% of a user's maximum heart rate is considered moderate exercise, and like I said before, 70 to 85% of the max heart rate is considered vigorous. So these would be the heart rates that a user would want to strive for either moderate or vigorous exercise. And then the second module here is the analysis module, and this gives a user the option to view two graphs about their heart rate history. They can see exercise efficiency chart or resting rates trends. So I'm going to load my exercise efficiency graph here. And we see this nice looking graph pop up. We actually use chart.js to help us create these graphs. So what we see here is on the x-axis we see the time of an exercise, and then on the y-axis here we see the percentage of max heart rate that was achieved during the exercise. So for example, on the 7th here at 8:30 we see that this exercise session the user achieved 80% of their max heart rate. So basically this graph can be used to make sure that you are continuously achieving the exercise category you want, which would be either a moderate or vigorous exercise depending on your goals. And secondly, you can see your resting rates trends. So I'm going to load that one. And this one looks similar. On the bottom x-axis there, we see the time that the resting session was recorded. And then on the y-axis, we actually see the heart rate this time. So we can see that on the 15th here at 9:49, the user had a resting heart rate of 66. So this chart can really be used to track your heart efficiency over time. We strive to have our resting heart rate on the lower side. So if we see this chart trending downwards over time, that's good. That means we're doing exercise correctly. If we see it going up over time, that means maybe we're not quite meeting our goals, or we have more stress, etc., etc. So that's kind of what this chart can tell us. So I will go back to the dashboard. And that is the core functionality of Pulse PI. I've demonstrated creating an account, logging in, changing profile fields, recording exercise sessions, viewing exercise history, and then viewing analysis of that exercise recorded. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this demonstration of Pulse PI.